you can have the most amazing scene with the most amazing cast and all the right cameras and the lenses and everything like that, and you're doing your job really well, and then suddenly the thunderclouds roll in, and
do you feel with experience you can sort of pinpoint the issues, even be it in hindsight, but you can be like, okay, this is what, because that's what we're kind of leading towards, right? The fact we have these, you have the file, I have the book we discussed, sort of, we do write it down, and I wonder for what purposes. Is it to sort of remember the failure, to learn from it?
Well, I mean, I'll tell you, I mean, for me, I'm going to get my iPad out. For me, I write it down because my memory is terrible, because I'm 38 years old and I went to too many parties in my 20s and I can't remember anything. And also I think for me, you know, when I write it down, I'm more likely to remember it. I've just got the list up, or my version of the list.
Yeah.
So, you know, I write it down, and also I write it down because also when I look at it now, when I was looking at it just now, I realised how many things I write down again and again and again, and I still don't learn. And it's like, wow, how can I not be learning this shit? What about you? Why do you write down your mistakes? What?
It was interesting. So I was like, okay, what's the very first one I wrote down? Okay, I started doing it while still assisting, actually, it turns out. I sort of forgot about it, then that book was on and off, then obviously I made a file on the iPhone to do it quicker, and then it sort of tried to turn it into a to-do list, to be like, okay, make sure this next time, or make sure you update that in a kit list, and so on. But first it was actually a bit more kind of patronizing. It was actually to other departments' mistakes. Looked at the first one and it was like, shit lunch. It literally just says shit lunch. I'm like, probably on some shitty low budget film where like we had, little I knew that's probably going to be for the next 5 or 6 or 7 or whatever, how many years I assisted. But then it starts, then I propelled then I stepped out to DPing, and then there's a bit more kind of, okay, underlit a bit. I thought it's a studio going to be enough, and it turns out I needed a bit more space lights and so on. So, but you're so right in terms of, I was like, oh fuck, these space lights notes again, like 3 months later. It's like, I still didn't order enough. Like, what's going on?
Well, I mean, I can, if you want to start attacking this list now, I mean,
let's do it.
I wrote down, you know, I've written down some big ones on my list, and really ones which I keep on doing as well. Still to this day, I keep fucking up. So I mean, one of the. Let me have a look. I'm just looking at my laptop.
Yeah. Same. Yeah, I have. Yeah.
I mean, I'll read you verbatim. One, which is it's weird because it's so. Look, I don't come from a commercials world. I didn't assist. I was very lucky. Or unlucky, or however you want to look at it. I didn't assist, so I didn't really have anybody who could show me how to do stuff. My biggest one is about pack shots and products, and it's weird because I sort of come into a shoot and go, oh, how can we make this look cool? How can we make this look nice? Whatever it is. But my first one I've written down is a quote verbatim: "Make an obvious fuss over products, you penis." So that's myself writing to myself. And then I've got another. I've got a few of them here. You know, shooting products.
Ben, can you clarify? That was more the fuss. You mean to have more time, or more kind of pretend you care to clients?
Well, that one was that actual specific one was a little bit more make a fuss, like make an obvious, visible fuss. Get your light meter out, play with some gels, dim some lights, make a little bit of DOP magic. A little, you know, pull the rabbit out of the hat, and you know, take one.
Bring it up 5%. No, 2%. Yeah.
All that sort of shit. But also, you know, I've also written down as well that, you know, shooting products of any kind is essentially a pack shot. If the product's in it, it's a pack shot. Always last to see their product beforehand. Always think about how you're going to light it. Always think about how it's going to look its best. Look at how other people have shot it before. Do those sort of things, and that's, you know, that's the first thing which I've written down here to talk to you about today, which is, you know, as not a, you know, originally a commercials DOP, for me, that's the thing which I cannot stop hammering home to myself, is like, oh my God, you're here to sell some shit. Whatever it is, you've got to make it look appealing. You know, you can't just have beams of light through the window necessarily, because they might not work with the product. You know, you really got to think about how that product looks. And it's a bit boring and it's a bit annoying, and you know, it all blends into, you know, somehow I occasionally feel about commercials. Bottom line is, you're being paid to make that thing look nice. So God damn it, fucking pay attention to it, because I keep clearly looking at my list here. I keep on forgetting to do that. So that's my
I
personal...
totally agree. Yeah, totally agree. I think it's in terms of the pack shot, so anything where the product is in. Like, if I had to make one rule without even knowing what the shoot is, and advice to like younger gang kind of stepping into commercials, is usually you would be asked to overlight to your taste, especially nowadays where you're meant to kind of shadow is the king and you're meant to sort of do a bit of neon here and there and so on.
Yeah.
If you're shooting a bread commercial, which happened to me like maybe 2 years ago, it was like tons and tons of light on that like piece of loaf, and they were like, no, but we need a bit more. And I was like, guys, leave that to post for sure. Like selecting that part of your packaging to pop, I can't really do it. Like, it's just easier for you to perfect it in post. But then the politics kick in as well, that you sort of meant to care. Like you say, yeah, you make a fuss of it. But they also imagine as layers that these agency people, they meant to make a fuss in front of each other. They're like, yeah, like this is good. Oh, this is not good. I had the other way where it was perfect, but yet for someone to show their power, they'll be like, this blue is too blue. You're like, what do you mean? I want blue a bit more green. And you're like, but this is literally pre-arranged colors of your brand. Like, we literally like picked it and then kind of matched it. Like, no, but this is too blue. Yep. Okay, this is too blue. Let's pretend we care and work on that for half an hour.
Totally. I mean, ultimately, you're selling your soul to the capitalist devil. Fuck it. You've got to go.
You might as well embrace it and enjoy it.
Totally. As you might as well, love the game, because that's what you're signing up for. And as a DOP, you're getting paid quite a lot of money as well. So you're like, kind of, well, whatever. Just suck it up a little bit. But part of it is actually you do need to pay attention to it. But part of it is actually, like you say, with the bread commercial, playing the game a little bit and being like, turning the brightness up on the monitor a touch if you have to, but making a fuss over the product, making a fuss over why you're there, the reason that you and all your crew and all your friends are getting paid to be there, and your director as well, who's like, I'm getting paid a lot of money, guys. Just be nice about it,
And I think crew management comes massively into it, that you meant to sort of put your gang on the same kind of level of, please pretend you're fucking interested. I know you're just getting 5-hour overtime by now, but it's not about that. Let's pretend a little bit. And you will struggle with slightly older crew who kind of went through the mills before, and they somehow ended up on your kind of a bread commercial. They'll be like, okay, they do it for you because you've done jobs for them, or there's another bigger one kind of on the horizon. I find you do kind of have. But I want to ask you, Ben, as well. So coming to something as kind of iconic now as say End of the Fucking World or other drama you shot, do you then, when you go back to commercial, do you sort of catch yourself thinking more frequently, being like, why the fuck am I doing this here? Because obviously there's no that creative gratification is really dumbed down because so many people will have their fingers in the pie.
Yeah, to a degree, yes. And so the sort of the joy of creating a drama, I agree, isn't, that creative, meat isn't there when you're doing almost any commercial. However, honestly, like after, it's like going to war. Doing a drama, I mean, obviously it's not going to war, but shooting a drama is so furious and such hard work. And then you come out of it, and then you get given, say, 3 days in the studio doing a fashion commercial, fed on like amazing food, and you're like, this is okay. I can sell my soul a little bit here. I can get behind this amazing, beautiful bread. That bread is going to look so nice.
It's lit.
Totally. Wonderful. Let's have some more bread, guys. But swings and roundabouts for everything. Ultimately, the way yes, you're right. I do feel a slight. I'm not in love with commercials in the same way that I'm, in love with the drama, which I might shoot or whatever. But you still got to think. Honestly, what we do is just pissing around with lights. What we do is just fun and creative, whatever happens. So even the shittest commercial, I still you think, just fucking have a laugh
and enjoy the process. I mean,
totally. So again, what's your give me.
So my first one was again, it's kind of a major one, and I wrote it down recently. I would say maybe last year, I think it was. It was not prepared enough for interviews. So I started going due to my agent kind of pushing me for drama and features, I had a wave of interviews where like I met a bunch of directors and read, and at different stages. Some were like even recalls because there's a lot of people, I guess, battling for the job. Some were just a phone. But I felt generally I could have done more. I felt, and we discussed it briefly somewhere else, I guess, maybe you saw that discussion, that there was kind of not enough visuals, for example, which I still wrapping my head around, where I have to show other people's visuals at an interview. I struggle with that concept because I might not be able to shoot this the same way I sort of bring up the reference, but understand the game, that's what director and producer might want you, because they want to imagine the film you imagining. So I'm still grappling with, I shot some, and that was kind of early, like relatively early note, maybe I think year and a half ago, after a string of interviews which didn't go that, but they went well, but I felt they were wanting more. So that's my first one.
And how did you do your reference documents then? Were you doing just your own work? Was it just stuff you shot?
It would be, I would kind of experiment and see people's reactions. So I would do either scenes and then show them how the scene could be shot or certain movements of the camera. Then I went even into previs. So I used that cine designer thingy. So I prevised couple scenes, even sort of lit them in a pretend one. And yet still, even at that interview, there was a kind of a bit of a comment. So do you have like screen grabs from like, you know, to see the bit better? I'm like, fucking hell, it's like a 3D render of your actual scene. Like this actual character. I chose like the hairstyle, so it sort of looks to what was described. And I'm like, yeah, that's cool. But they have like a screen grab. I'm like, yeah, I guess you can imagine, like, I don't know, it was, that reference was sort of like Lynchian Mulholland Drive in a cabaret scene. You're like, yeah, I can pull it up, but you're literally looking at your scene visualized to the best of my ability.
From Paris, Texas in there. Fucking don't worry about it.
Yeah. It's just like that. One of any iconic film with a cabaret in it. Just basically imagine that. So I wonder, how do you deal with interviews? Did you feel you got better then, or you were good kind of straight away?
Well, no, I mean, I've done 2 interviews ever. I mean, I don't do. I've been working. You know, I feel like a stuck record, but I've been working for like 18 years. I've only just sort of really started to do jobs where I get interviewed. It's always been my directors, people who are my friends who I've known for 10 plus years who get me, you know, on board with stuff. So I've only done 2 interviews ever. One was for The End of the Fucking World, which was with my director friend Lucy Forbes. So, you know, I had a friend in the room straight away, and we've been talking about it for ages. I knew exactly what to do and what not to do, and what to say and what not to say. The job wasn't mine, but it was mine to lose rather than mine to get. And then the other one I actually did in lockdown, I did a couple of weeks ago, and it was for a job which I can't say what it is, but this was about 2 weeks ago. And I did a 30-page mood board, and I was speaking to the director, someone I've known for a very long time, someone who is a good friend of mine, and they said, I went through all the mood board stuff, and I got a phone call the next day saying all the execs think it was a bit too moody. I was like, right, too moody. And I was like, this is a nightmare. I'm supposed to get this job. Wow. I might not get it. I think that everything's on sort of go slow because of, you know, coronavirus.
But that's the ultimate battle, right? We're talking about this idea of how much do you want to show, because they might be like, well, that's your final look, and you're like, no, it's the first meeting, it can't be final look. And how much you meant to sort of basically bullseye it into like, yes, that's exactly how we imagined.
Well, in my opinion, you're supposed to be saying a little bit like this, but it's whatever you're doing, it's a new show, it's a new advert, it's not made before. You know, they're saying the combination of actors, location, lighting, time of day, all that kind of shit hasn't actually been done before. Otherwise, you're just remaking something. So I found it a little bit surprising, but I'm not going to, you know, I'll going to see what happens. But you know, for me, when I do reference documents, I deep dive into my references folder, watch a few films, pull a few stills out, and I think it's fine to show other people's work because it's so much better than mine. I just nick other people's amazing frames. I'm sure I've nicked a few frames of yours over the years and put them on.
I'm sure, like, there's a lot of yours of mine as well. Yeah, it's just because there is a certain nice feeling. Because in the commercials you do get treatment, so it's a bit different. So they kind of visualize pretty well. But yeah, and it's always fun to see your friends' work or your own work sometimes in a treatment. You're like, oh fuck, someone like screen grabbed it. Which kind of leads me. There's a whole another topic of Instagram and Instagram usage and the way we had to adapt to it being the new portfolio. It was never designed to be a portfolio. It was designed to be a social media app, kind of just sharing with friends. And then kind of in half a year, somewhere, what, 4 years ago, it just sort of like everything came around where you basically meant to, and that's kind of, I'm leading maybe to another point to discuss as well. You meant to know a certain amount of good screen grabs from each project. So not so much the movement anymore, especially for commercial DPs and music videos, the people who understood the power of a good screen grab from a relatively average project became kings on Insta, because you're like, I've seen the music video, it's good, it's not as great as these 3 grabs, but suddenly that game was on. It was just on. You could not avoid it. What do you think about that happening, obviously? Because you're good on it, like you're big in terms of numbers on Insta.
I mean, but I spent a fucking long time taking photos of dogs doing poos, you know, because that was what I liked. Oh, there's a dog doing a poo.
Same, collection of poo,
you know, and so
was there like a point you're like, okay, I need to up that game because I'll be left?
It was something like 2015, 2016. I was like, hold up, this is my sort of public facing thing here. This is not just, can't just be photos of dogs doing poos. So I was like, this has to really represent the best of my work. And luckily enough, when I do any old advert, I shoot 25,000 frames. So surely there must be one in there, which if I run it through Lightroom again and I put a little crop on it, it's going to look all right. And then, you know, so I think there's a lot of bullshit about Instagram, like, and I totally agree with you. I do think there is a truth in it, in that if, as a DOP, you can't look after a single frame of your own, you know, if you can't put one thing out there which is good, even if you've polished that shit to perfection, even if you've done layer after layer of shapes and whatever's and cropped it and done whatever, you need to have something good out there at the end of that, because if you can't be trusted with that on Instagram, how can you be trusted with a commercial? How can you be trusted with a film or whatever you want to shoot, TV show? So I kind of think there is a sort of an element of truth in that you have with Instagram, you know, this purity of you have to do one thing good out of the 25 trillion frames you've shot. Make one which is nice. Come on, you've got all this time. You do whatever you want. Pick any subject you want. Take a photo of anything you want. Make it good. So yes, I sort of roll my eyes at my own Instagram, and one day Instagram will shut down, and that day I'll be really happy. I'll be like, oh, thank you.
It'll be interesting times. It'll be a very wild west in certain industries. But tell me, like, when
we'll be on TikTok doing dances for our great commercials.
Queeby. But tell me, when Instagram became big and you became subsequently as well getting quite good numbers for the industry, did it affect your thinking in terms of shooting certain projects where like you're like, yeah, that's a good scene for Insta, this will be the still, or you sort of disassociated and then fished through?
Yeah, I mean, it'd probably be lowest common denominator for me personally. It'd be like, oh my god, this job is shit. I'm really not enjoying myself. You know, it's 2-day advert, whatever it might be. I'm really not enjoying myself. And you go, at least I know there's one good shot, which is going to be on Instagram. At least I can pull a single thing out of this. So yeah, but you know, but the problem with Instagram, though, it's not necessarily about your pictures. It's not necessarily about making good pictures. What it is about chatting to people and writing great shots on other people's stuff and things like that, which I try really not to do because it's a bit hateful, but that's really what it's about. It's not necessarily about making
cross-pollination, yeah.
Yeah, totally, which is such bullshit. But anyway, so I think Instagram's bullshit. For me, what I treat it like is like, do you play Xbox or PlayStation?
Yeah, to an extent.
It's like XP. It's like your little thing in the background. It's your little game in the background, which is always running. It's your little numbers game in the background. You know, seeing where your Bitcoin's going or whatever. You know, whatever the thing that you sort of want a person enjoys in the background. For me, that's what Instagram is. It's like this little game in the background. I'm like, yeah, that'll get me another couple of followers, maybe. Who knows?
Yeah. Get some points. Yeah,
totally.
Tell me the next point. Say again, sorry.
Well, how do you feel about it? What's your?
I feel sort of I guess I'm asking because I feel relatively confused. You can either ignore the elephant in the room, that is selection of how we present our work there, but then at the same time I agree that it is kind of, it does prove to a certain extent that you can shoot quite well, because also it means you select well, because we've always done that. We always shot, I would say maybe 5 times more commercials that end up on the reel, like 4 either easy, super bland or no one needs to see them because the brand is so boring. So it's just a new way, maybe slightly more on steroids, where people think, oh, that's all they shoot, or oh, they just travel, they just the perfect lives, they're just traveling all the time, sitting in business class, and here's a techno crane. So I don't like that aspect. So I'm sort of balancing where my image on Insta is slightly more like, I don't know, posting like articles I like, or some silliness I like. But then again, at the same time, in the feed, not in the stories, I take it relatively seriously, where it's photography or it's screen grabs and all of that stuff. But it's like a very, very balancing game. And I understand, because I've been on set where a couple of times people said, I'm not maybe there, but I met director or something, because they're like, yeah, I followed you for like a year. And not necessarily from the images, because I know I posted like 6 images in that year, because sometimes I delete it, sometimes I refresh it, and they were more liking the personality. And I guess that's where it can be kind of useful, where they like you, okay, you're a nice guy, or like we have certain similar interests, or Ben is very funny, and so certain things sort of sells you as well as persona. It's almost like constant interview. You're constantly being interviewed.
Yeah. And I totally agree. I mean, for me, I sort of wanted to try and find my own voice, which is something you do as an artist, and Instagram is kind of an extension of that. And and I think what you said at the start of this was this honesty thing. I try and be quite honest on my Instagram. I try and don't be totally honest, don't bare my soul every day on it, but just try and be a little bit like, another studio, or whatever it is, whatever shit jokes I've made on Instagram. But but let's try and be a little bit honest about what we do, which is it is hard work, and we devote our lives to it, and we love what we do, and we're serious about doing it well, but also aware that what we do is just like a laugh, really. It's not, we're not saving the world, and I think we can do it well and take it seriously, whilst also sending it up a little bit. Hopefully.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Fuck ups then. Give us another one.
So, fuck ups. Second one is confusing the dates. So there was times before agent. I missed on a job because I said I'm not available, only misreading the dates in the email. And by the time I was like, wait, did they say 26th or 24th? I was responding to 26th. I go on, it's like, oh, 24th. So I'll call straight away, maybe 15 minutes later, and the job was gone. I was like, oh, fuck.
That job could have changed your career. That job could have...
Or I could have been hit by a car.
Or you could have been hit by a car,
But I had that, so I really appreciate kind of the team at the agency looking after all that. That really takes away the strain and confusion sometimes.
Nice, good. And then when it goes wrong, you can have a go at them. When they mess up. Which agency are you with?
I'm with Echo.
Okay. Where are they? Oh yeah, I know someone who works at Echo. Yes.
Yeah. Ellie Cook is the lead agent. Yeah.
Nice.
I like them.
Yes. They got people say they're nice. Actually, I think I know I've spoken to people about them before, and they say nice.
Yeah, because some people went from one big agency to them, because I think that kind of they created a new one. So it's good. I'm enjoying it. I like the fact I'm being considered for certain jobs I would have objectively never been kind of on the radar, just because they trust the agent and they trust the selection, and then it's only up to you, at least that you're there through the door to chat and see what happens. What about yourself? Did you feel a change when you got signed up?
No. I'm with Vision Artists, formerly Vision at Wizzo. They're lovely. I love them to pieces. It's taken. I've been with them for 3 years, and I was with a big agency before that for a year, and then I spent a long time without an agent. It did not change for me. It didn't change stuff overnight at all. I mean, there's no such thing as, for me, in my opinion, as any big change in a career. Everything is glacial, like every stage of the way. And and this is not true for everybody, but for me, it's glacial, but in a quite nice way,
I think for 99% it's glacial, and there's 1% which sort of shoots from having good pictures on Insta to being some of the biggest people around.
Totally.
But then people think that's the normal like way to do it, and it's not. It's like I have to like really emphasize it's not. For 99%, it's not.
It's definitely not. I mean, nothing. You know, there's that people. Some of these, you know, young up and comers shoot amazing stuff. I'm definitely not, you know, against them at all. But I totally agree. That is a 1% of DOPs. The rest is learning your craft, taking your fucking time. You know, having very occasional lucky breaks which slightly shift your career, rather than big ones which rocket ship it to somewhere. Yeah, a lot of people seem very focused on agents, and I'm not sure that.
Yeah, I think
they're very important, but to get on with the agent is vital. I love my agent to pieces, but in terms of a magic wand, a silver bullet which will sort of sort your career out, they're definitely not a thing.
Yeah, they're great negotiators, and they're great to kind of maybe objectively look at it and be like, okay, this is your real place for now. This is where we're heading, and I like the agency for that. I think it's very kind of important part, but most of it will be your kind of daily grind of doing it. Like you said, it's incremental, and also what I learned, for example, you just don't know which job is gonna kind of bring you to that next step up. If it's imagine like 100 steps, you just like some surprises came from like a fucking Facebook job when I was like like looking for jobs on Facebook groups, shot something that was seen by a friend of director who then gets signed by like a Pulse or RSA, and then we shoot a bunch of commercials in subsequent years. Never would have fucking imagined. It came from like a Facebook post. It's just there's no
rhyme or reason at all.
Yeah. It's a brony in motion. What's yours? What's your next?
My next fuck up. I mean, again, which I keep on writing down, which I've written down 4 times, which is I'm going to read them out one by one. Practicals. Make sure they have controllable ones. Scoops, for fuck's sake. Just generally pay attention to them if you're using them. Stop trying to use Hue LIFX. Get control over every single one. You should have changed all the pracs. It would have been much better. Fucking downlighters killed you. You know, like these
I like the anger. I like the anger.
Well, because I have to talk to myself like this, otherwise I don't learn. And it's the anger I do it to myself, because it's like I come away from a shoot going, oh, it's downlighters. If I could go back in time and kill, you know, Hitler or something like that, or go back in time and kill the person that invented recessed ceiling downlighters, there wouldn't be any worries, because there'd be no more recessed ceiling downlighters. I fucking hate those things. I hate them in my house. I hate them like on set. They're awful.
At least the concentration camps would have been lit well, yeah.
So I hate. Essentially, for me, it's all about control of pracs, and it's something I forget again and again and again and again, because you sort of it bridges this gap of art departments and camera departments. It sort of always sort of falls to the wayside slightly, unless it's just bog standard, you know, sort of IKEA paper ones, which everyone loves and are easy. For me, I don't forget, but I always end up. It always seems to be the last thing on my list of things to sort out. I've got loads of Kino flows, brilliant. I got some sky panels. Don't worry about it. I forget about the pracs, which are everywhere, and they're doing loads of light in your scene, and they're lighting sometimes they're lighting your car, sometimes they're doing all sorts of shit like that, and you've got to fucking control those things. And for me, and you've got to like own the control of them. You've got to control the color temperature, their color, their shape. Are they soft? Are they hard? Like really, like that's the sort of bit, and that falls into location. So you're sort of bridging this, you know, your bit of location, a bit of art department, but it's actually really, as a DP, it's down to you. I seem to not be able to learn that lesson.
What's your relationship with Gaffer? Like, would you say that's also something a Gaffer could look after, and that's also a note to them? Like,
totally, of course,
controlling.
Yeah, absolutely. They need to be all over that shit as well. But ultimately, you're the Gaffer's boss. So you know, if the light sparks up and it's the wrong color temperature, it's your fault. You know, it falls to you as the DOP. I kept on trying to. This is another thing which I kept on trying to use those RGB LED lights. You know, I've got LIFX ones, but it's the same as Philips Hue. I kept on trying to make those.
Are they good enough, or is it all over when you?
No, they're bullshit. Like fucking. So this what happens. I plug them all in. I get them going. I have a mini router. I've been doing it myself as well, because it's like, you know, prosumer stuff. So you're not. Really, I've done this 3 times now, I think. Makes it all work. Plug it all in, get it going, works on the app. I'm like, fucking hell, it's working. Great. And then literally about 20 minutes into shooting, there's one specific time which was on.
It just starts blinking the disco mode.
Well, no, they start flickering, but they start doing like this such a subtle rolling shutter, like almost unreal, like RoboCop's view. When in the old RoboCop films, it's got this sort of line view thing, which you almost can't notice. And they just started doing that. I was like, oh my god, when did that start happening? Because nobody noticed on the monitors. Like I was like, there's something I can see there. I'm like, oh my god, can I see that? Yeah, it's weird. What's that? And like, I mean, we essentially fixed it in the grade, but I was like, I can't be having that sort of shit happening, you know.
And it happened, like I had a conversation I'm not going to name, we can discuss it later, but from like an Oscar Academy nominated film had that in their scene, because it's so subtle you can't really see it. So they had to pay Post House to literally do masks and like grade in these lines moving, because it's just so subtle. And then it usually came from prosumer LEDs, because that's the main thing. It's
I hate this. Hopefully, once it's over, we've got those Astera light bulbs, which are coming out.
Yes, but they're still in prototype, or they out already, or not yet?
I mean, who knows? I thought they were going to be sort of ready for later in the year, but I mean, who knows with all the shit that's going on.
Imagine if it's just they bought like a little factory which does these for Panasonic and Philips and just kind of rehouses
exactly
them.
The same shit,
just makes like a massive, like
a stereo stick on the side, and it's 500 quid each.
First day you plug it in, it's like, wait, is that rolling? Is that rolling shot MC? Listen, I want to ask you as well, regards to lighting, because I thought that's something. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's something in a way changed in you, that you started to simplify massively. Like I looked at some of your lighting stuff on the end, and I was shocked by, because nowadays you're meant to kind of show, oh look how much cool gear, and some of your stuff is like a window and a negative. Is it something you arrived at, or is it something to do with the show, or is it just your new way to do it?
It's a bit of both, actually, really, to be honest. You know, look, on the End of the Fucking World, I inherited a very stylish show. What you find is, so I was very exceptionally lucky in the first instance. I watched the show a few times, and I was like, I don't know how much actual lighting is on here. You can't tell. The problem is you can never tell actually what's behind camera. You can tell what the end result is, and you can mimic an end result, but it's very hard to see exactly what it is. And to be honest, also, obviously, like all of us, have always loved the work of Roger Deakins, which is always very simple, available light work. And so for the End of the Fucking World 2, I kind of felt like, one, I think the first series they did quite simple setups in it, I'm not quite sure, but it's definitely a way we should have been going. And then after speaking to the directors, we definitely wanted to go into that, approach the lighting in that way. I think one of the things which I really like about the first series is it feels like a kind of an indie film. It feels like a sort of weird 90s American indie film where they didn't have much money. So to approach it in that way was a really fun challenge, and it gives a sort of an honesty about it. So a little bit of both. One, number one, I think that's the style of the first series to a degree. I don't know if that's necessarily a rule which they made to not use any, to use a minimum amount of lighting. But it's certainly a rule which Lucy Forbes, my director, and I made, was to be minimalist with the lighting. And it's certainly something which I enjoy doing. The problem with like commercials, which is most of my work, is you have to have so much stuff in your back pocket. With the drama, at the end of the day, if it doesn't look quite good enough, you're the only person who's disappointed, generally, I find.
As long as it's on time, yeah.
Exactly. As long as you finish on time, exactly. Whereas with a commercial, you kind of enter into a world where you are getting 18Ks when M18s will do, because what you don't want is to never say you can't give it more stop or you can't do this. So you're entering into a world where you're backing yourself up with more and more lights and more fuss and more flags and more everything, because you don't want to be that person when the bread commercial guy says, I want to see the front and back in focus at the same time. You don't want to say, guys, I can't, because your job isn't to say I can't. Your job is to say, yeah, no problem at all. And to hell with the M18s, whatever it is. And if it's not to your taste, it doesn't matter. So kind of certainly especially recently, but certainly with my drama stuff, where I'm the audience. I'm the most critical audience member. I like to do it minimally. I like to work available light. I like to sort of take that and do very simple tricks because it's fun and it's I don't know. Yeah, I don't like big lights with beams of light coming through stuff and things like that. For my work, obviously, there's amazing stuff which looks like that. But does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes total sense. Yeah. I wonder because on a commercial, annoyingly, that would mainly be wasted on the time one. I mean, will maybe mainly be wasted on amount of takes. I can see 30, 40 takes sometimes of some ridiculous fucking stuff instead of moving on. So I wonder from your experience in TV, whether on drama, whether that would be kind of moved into other departments, art having more time, or will it be like directors working with people more? Where would that time one go?
I mean, it goes to complete the day, really. And it goes on to everything. So it's sort of, if I haven't done many huge budget TV shows. End of the fucking World was not a big budget. It's definitely a low budget show. So I still don't know what it's like to one day, hopefully, to have loads of money and loads of time and loads of prep and all that, and the money to have pre-lights every single day and big lights and stuff like that. So I think you sort of lean into what you've got, and if it's low budget, do something simple. I think I don't know where that time you win goes. It goes to more shots. It goes to a director with more time with the cast. It goes to a couple more takes of the cast, perhaps. But as long as you feel you're happy with what you're getting, then I mean, to be honest, in my opinion, and this maybe leads on to my next fuck up, really. In my opinion, the way I did this in the fucking World too, some of it really worked with available light, but I think actually I was a bit too much of a slave to that way of working in places. There was times where I don't think it worked. And one of the main things actually is looking after leads, which is another thing which I wrote down on here.
That you don't think they look good enough in some shots?
There's a couple of times in that, and also in other things I've shot over the years, and I've written down things like, oh my fucking God, look after your leads, please, for fuck's sake. FFFSSSSS, because and in the fucking World, that was from the End of the Fucking World. There's a couple of times where maybe a couple of different members of the cast, who knows, don't look what I would say ideal. I'm like, that's not the way to treat any kind of cast at all. Even if you have your convictions as a DOP and you want this to look real and honest and available light and shaping available light, and sometimes, very occasionally, you've got a fucking massive, you've got a big, you've got an overcast sky above you, and you've got no bounce anywhere. And if one of the rules was no polyboard, you can break that fucking rule for the sake of not making someone look absolutely ghastly. So, and obviously I'm my worst critic for those sort of things. So I think one of my...
Yeah, I was going to ask, did you ever had it that someone else, but not you, noticed that?
No,
did you ever have someone else be like, what's going on in here? Like,
not remotely, not at all, not a pip. But then also back into this conversation,
because I so agree with this point. Yeah, I had it on a commercial where people be like, like, what is this? And you're like,
I've had that on commercials, yes, absolutely, and yes, I definitely have, but not on a drama, because again, you're your own worst critic. Because also there's, again, this what we were talking about at the start, there's this sort of post-rationalization thing where people assume you intended stuff, and you don't always. Most of the time you do. A lot of, majority of stuff that we do is done with intent, but sometimes there's happy accidents and sometimes there's sad accidents. But either way, you're sort of seen to be a master of the image, which isn't always true, because sometimes you just got fucking lucky and you forgot the sun was going to be over there and backlighted everything and it looks fucking amazing. And you're like, let's turn over now. And they turn over and you know to turn over.
That was the plan. That was the plan.
Totally. And then you post-rushing and say, yes, I spent months there waiting for the sun to be in exactly the right place.
Did you see that? Yeah. We have 20 minutes spare of this goal.
Yeah. but equally, sometimes, I don't know, for me, End of the Fucking World, segueing into looking after my leads, I think I was a bit too much of a slave to sort of a natural light only, available light only, minimal lighting type thing on it. Possibly it worked really well, and sometimes didn't work so well in a couple of other times. But yeah, my other fuck up is, which I keep on writing down, is looking after your leads, which for some reason, again, it just won't bed in that actually actors survive on their looks, boys and girls, you know, men and women, are, you know, whether it's non-gender specific, that they have to look good. And obviously the key is making them look good and dramatic at the same time. You know, so I've written down dozens of things here, like, you know, fucking highlights. There's so many times where I'm like, oh yeah, big moody softbox, brilliant, amazing, it looks great, and then there's no highlights, and I hadn't really, you know, like, a lot of times I get it and it's there, but sometimes I'm like, why the fuck didn't I put a fucking highlight in this? Why don't I just put a China lantern on the other side of the room and have some life in the eyes? That's my next fuck up for me, which I keep on making, is right. Look after your leads, please. Make it look moody by all means, but just also make them look fit as well.
No, definitely, yeah.
Do you ever worry about that? Is that everything which gets you?
I do with exactly that point about looking good, because I still strike the balance time to time, trying to find that how far can you, what's dramatic and what's not dramatic. And I think I burnt myself a couple of times on actors of age, where I assumed by then they know their age and they're not surprised they have a bit of wrinkle here and there. And when they see monitor, they were like, ooh, and you're like, this looks all right. It looks like kind of your age minus maybe 10. But they're like, no, but I need, you know, like I need like a massive behind the camera soft. And you're like, okay, we'll add that, because I had it time and time here and there usually with aging. I think with younger actors, they would maybe even they not really liking it massively, because for dramatic effect it's a bit more contrasty. I wouldn't say they probably wouldn't vocalize. If they're like relatively known aging, they would probably vocalize. I had it was pretty big star where I pushed it to the edge. How dramatic can she look? Kind of a known musician, known lady musician, of a normal age. She's still at her peak. I set it. The manager came in to check the lighting. It was on a documentary, and they're like, "Can you make it a bit more frontal?" I'm like, I can try, but maybe let's see her in, because it will take me like 20 seconds to move it. And it was first time I sort of won. I was shocked because she's massive in terms of image. She looks insane. I was like, maybe there's like a skin issue I don't know of or something like that. She sits, she's perfect. But just because it's track they rolled so many times through, well, that's how she's lit. She's just lit with a massive fucking 12 foot breezy behind the camera. It's like, let's at least shift it to the side. And they were like, oh, that's actually quite nice. But it took like a bit of pushing, like, let's try maybe. We're not going to roll if you don't like it. And it was fine. But I think it's that classic Hollywood glow of a leading lady, which is usually what's in their mind. So, and that's how most music videos were shot, and even in noughties in UK as well. You had a massive soft source behind.
Put a breeze over the top of a lens and get Madonna in.
Exactly. So my next point was choosing or not choosing project. I think the mistake I make sometimes. So stuff I say no to, thinking it's not going to be that good or interesting, and then I see the end result, or I find out the director made it, and I'm like, fucking hell. Like I had it where like a small kind of a thing he was meant to shot, I turned it down. The next job that director did was a Rihanna music video, and I was like, right, fucking great. So, and I had it a couple of times.
Why did you turn down those jobs?
On a couple occasions was the budget sounded wrong, so not even my rate, which was kind of wrong in quotes, but it was just not enough money to do what they sort of thought I can do at the budget. So they were pointing at previous commercial or music video I have done, and they were like something like that, and you're like, well, that's a quarter of the budget, so it's going to be kind of a bit smaller than that. And they would push and push, and I'll be like, sorry guys, I just don't want to commit to not doing a good job, because it is, you do have a link between the look, especially in commercials, and the money. You just do. You get a better food stylist if it's a food commercial. You get better locations if it's a car commercial. You go to a better country to shoot it, and so on, so on. I've done it, and I've done stuff where I was stuck with kind of people, unfortunately, which didn't go anywhere, and I sort of felt it inside for a few years where, well, this is not really going anywhere. We're not growing at the same time. And that's unfortunately just the way it is, that DPs tend to grow quicker than directors because you just shoot more. So looking back like 10 years ago, I could have maybe moved to other types of projects a bit earlier, and I was just sort of stuck for a few years.
Yeah. Yeah.
Did you have something of similar kind of career path mistakes?
Nothing specific. I mean, I've always just said yes to everything, which is its own, issue. So yeah, I mean, I love my work, and there's a good reason to every job, and I've just always just gone, yeah, great. Most of my directors are friends of mine, and they're like, oh, do you want to come do a music video in wherever it is? And you go, yeah, cool. That sounds like fun. Which, if I look back over, 2 decades of work, often I've missed out on other really good jobs because I've been doing something which, which isn't as good as the thing which I missed out on.
Sort of because of overlap.
Because of overlap, yeah, and that's really my only the way I feel I've fucked up like that. But to be honest, also what it has given me is directors who I've looked after, who I've really been loyal to, who are then also really loyal to me, and that's how I've made my career. I've never been on the front cover of DOP Monthly or whatever. So I've always just been loyal to my director. So yeah, even though it's in a way it's fucked up my career a number of times by saying yes to the wrong thing and missing out on the right thing, it's also actually, to be honest, it's meant I've got sort of directors who've been loyal to me as I've been loyal to them. So yeah, no, I haven't had that. That's not on my list.
We've discussed the sort of the career path and kind of the Gen Z who wants everything now, ideally in at most 6 months and so on. Did you ever had that in Korea where you were like having slight anxiety, like, am I making it? Did I make it yet? Like, when will I make it? Did you have anything like that?
Not. Yeah, I mean, I still do. Yeah, surely. I mean, I expect Roger Deakins sits there and he goes, "Why didn't I get the new Star Wars film or whatever?" Like, they must
with hair.
Yeah, so I guess there's 2 answers to your question. One, no, not really, because I bumbled my way through my career so far. In all honesty, I've just sort of gone from one thing to another and really not had any. It's only the past 5 years that I've really sort of been able to sort of steer my career a little bit and realise what's out there and realise kind of work out how it works really, to bring any kind of consistency to it. But what I have had, and this is a thing which I think is important to talk about, and I will talk about, is about jealousy. And I think this is whenever I talk to sort of up and coming DOPs, which I do all the time, it's a note about how you can't look at other people's careers and go, I deserve that. Why are they doing that? This is not right. And I used to think that. I didn't think that. I used to sort of have this sort of jealousy of other DOPs' careers. I go, oh my god, I'm really jealous of the work they do. When's my turn? When's my chance to get the big phone call? When do I get to go use the Alexa 65 or whatever the fuck it is? And or what whatever it was. It was this sort of slow plot of jealousy in the back of my mind, which I sort of, is one of the most poisonous things you can have as a DOP or an artist. Like, it really is deeply, deeply poisonous to what you do. And it took me a little while to get rid of it. I've got actually on my work notes, I've got a little mantra right at the top, which is about jealousy, and it's really self-helpy, and I hate that kind of shit. But I don't know if I can. It's really long, so I'm not going to read it out. But
come on,
really,
in short.
I'll send it. Well, it's saying that sort of jealousy is a mask for fear, for fear that we're not going to be able to get what we want, frustration that somebody else seems to be getting what's rightfully ours. It's bullshit. It strips you of this. Of action. It strips you of a will to act. I really I mean, I can't read it out because it's
fine.
Because it's embarrassing.
No, I totally
agree. And especially in the beginning of careers, I find so many people are like, "Oh my god, my friend got this job, and why did he get this job?" You can't act like that. You've got to. You can't think like that at all, because it's so much of what we do is down to luck. You just got to do your best job and not look over your shoulder at what the other DP is doing. You need to look at what they're doing because you need to look at their work. But the best thing I've always done is, since I've got over this, is to be inspired by other people's work. If you see something which you like, don't be jealous that you didn't shoot it, but love the fact it exists. Be impressed by it and embrace it. And when you see that DOP, say, actually, it's fucking good, mate. Well done.
And especially in industry this open, I think we're very, very lucky to be living, say, in London, where we have a shit tons of great DPs. And I think that's not a problem. I think some people see it, oh, well, fuck, it's impossible to get a job. It's possible to get a job, and secondly, it's possible to basically dial anyone you want, and they will answer your questions.
Yeah,
they'll be so open to answer your questions. The way when I was remembering and starting, like in doc work, I would call DPs who shot my favorite docs, and we'll talk for for some hours. And I think that's the beauty of open industry, that people are not like, well, fuck it, I'm not gonna say how I lit this car. Like anyone would answer you like how they lit this car or that star. I think that's the.
Also, the way I did, because the way I actually got really over my jealousy as well was to, whenever something was really good, I screenshotted it and I put it in my references folder. I made sure that next time I ripped it off and copied what David as well. So that's how I really got over jealousy.
But it's true. Or you learn from mistakes, because that's the way to do it as well. You're like, well, this looks great as a final product. Now tell me what were the issues. Like, and you're like, great, someone already fucking made these mistakes, so you might as well learn from them. And I think we're kind of open as a group to be like, yeah, well, this fucking didn't work. I tried, but next time.
What an age we fucking live in as well. When I first started, I didn't even know what DOP was, but I used to go on the Steadicam forum to read about what Steadicams are. It was like 2001, 2002, and I was like, oh my god, this is amazing. There's people that will tell you what Steadicam does and how it works or whatever. Like, but now we've got.
Well, cinematography.com forum, remember, with David Allen. You're like, oh my god, you can ask the ASC DP anything.
It blows your mind, but now it's even more accessible. Like, just fucking ask someone. Like. Yeah, I'm sure you get the same thing. You get I assume you get up and coming DPs asking you questions, asking how you shot stuff. And it's a wonderful thing to be able to give back to people. And I always think that whatever stage of your career you are, there's always someone in front of you, there's always someone behind you. Yeah. It's always important to give to the people who are up and coming, who are behind you, who are a couple of years behind you or whatever it is.
Really, so if anyone's listening and you made it, don't be lazy to answer a couple questions. Like, obviously it's also a question to those, and not a question, it's a request to those asking questions. I'm sure like you will support me in that try, if it's Googleable. Like, I saw your Film Lights talk and you're like, how many people asked what did you shoot it on? And I was like, guys, you're wasting your chance to actually ask a question, because obviously Ben is not going to reply to everyone. Well, it's 30-second Google what the show was shot on. You might as well ask him something that people haven't asked yet and learn from that. I find there's this kind of like passionate gang of what did you shoot this on? What lenses was it? As if that's what gives the result.
Oh my god, those filters are going to make me famous.
That's the Deacon's way. That's the Deacon's filter. You're like, that's not the question. Like, that's not the... No, I totally agree. Let me grab a beer. I might as well, because you had the beer. 2 seconds.
Okay.
This is real pro. This is real pro.
Hello, everybody who's listening. Hope you're enjoying lockdowns wherever you are. Cheers.
I didn't think of doing it sort of in between. It's the movie magic that is usually kind of cut out.
I didn't even notice you left the room. Okay.
Thanks. I don't know if it's a compliment, but
no, it's just compliments your amazing cinematography skills.
What? Yeah.
Popped out, popped back in again.
CG. Should we? There was a couple great questions. I don't know if they're gonna be. Yes, they are here. Let me show you. I really, really liked. Here it is. Do you see it? Anastasia Boutrim is asking, have you ever been misunderstood in the way you present yourself / communicate?
Do you want to answer that first?
I would say yes. I would say not frequently, but coming from sort of post-Soviet Eastern Bloc, the bluntness sometimes is mistaken for rudeness. The way I communicate sometimes, and living here for a bunch of years, I sort of softened a bit, but the kind of the Soviet way might be a bit more blunt. If it's shit, you just say it's shit. where obviously British way, you still say it's shit, but you just say it very politely. You know, this is great, but, and then that basically means it's shit. So I think that took me a bit of time because people were misreading that. I just wanted to save them time, but it was just kind of taken as a fucking argument.
Overly blunt.
Yeah, yeah. What about yourself? Did you feel ever?
I mean, not really. I mean, I guess there's sort of for me, there's two parts. One is I mumble a lot. I talk too fast. And so in a very basic sense, yeah, often people go, what? And I have to repeat myself again. What did you say? And I repeat myself slowly and breathe through it. So that I get misunderstood in that way. I also get misunderstood as well because I don't know how many people are listening who are English, I sound quite posh. And people think because I sound posh, I am posh. I'm actually very not posh. And I come from East London, quite a working class family in East London. I just have a fucking posh accent because my dad.
How did that happen in East London?
It's fucking random. My dad used to have lots of money before I was born. I've got his accent. Problem is, I'm not actually that smart and well educated, and I sound like I'm a bit posh and well educated and smart and everything like that, and I'm actually not. I'm just fucking like whatever, just trying to get through it.
Oh, so man, it's the humbleness.
People often people often understand, like people misunderstand like who I am. They think I'm some kind of posh kid.
But imagine that's for someone who's listening, not from UK, even someone who's listening from US to an extent. They might be sort of surprised with discussing class to an extent. That there is that stigma that you meant to be from a slightly working class background, because then it means you made it from bottom up, and there is that sort of stigma. Well, you're just fucking rich, right? Your parents are rich, and that's why. And it's sort of, there is a bit of that tension. You can see it on set because often agency people in commercials do come from slightly more privileged backgrounds. They say crew, and so there is a bit of that clash of talking slightly different languages and values. But then I don't know if that's true. Maybe the values are fucking the same.
Well, but the number of times I've gone, fucking hell, I just sound like a big posh cunt who's fucking mumbling away. And that's not who I am.
On an American job, and they're like, cunt?
Yeah, dickhead. But yeah, so no, but I think being understood is really important. So aside from those two tiny little side things, I think being able to communicate as DOP is really important. I think being able to communicate what needs to happen is really important. In the heat of the moment, often that doesn't happen, but then hopefully your crew will translate for you. I have amazing camera crew
He doesn't mean that.
Mumble in instruction, which barely makes sense. They know what I'm talking about, which is great.
I guess it helps with directors as well. I sort of remember vividly a couple of directors who I work with for a long time now on some of the first jobs that you like, it takes time to get used to each other's language, because then you're like, it's just them in the mood today, because directors do have kind of big of volatility, I find, than an average DP. They will be much more mood inclined to mood swings, because they're a bit more, on average, again, they're a bit more sensitive than a DP is. DP is more grounded. So I think that sometimes shocks you when you work with relatively big names and you're like, oh, interesting, I didn't know they're like that, but it might be just a bad day. They're not really like that. So people tend to judge like this very, very quickly. Now I'm mumbling, you see then? Like that.
Yeah. It's catching.
So, yeah, Anastasia, great question. And there's a couple
global
more.
Pandemic of mumbling.
Like, this is interesting. Did you ever try to do something better / good for it to actually backfire on the job?
Sorry, some kind of weird dandruff thing going on. I don't have dandruff. I was like, what the fuck is that?
It's backfiring already.
Yeah, I mean, I think, you surely you always, like, I think as DOP, you
over polish, sort of overdo it.
Yeah, I think too many lights. is a classic thing. Let's put some more lights on this. You know, sometimes less is more. So I can't think of anything specific. So there's two answers to that. One is, yeah, you know, you always try and do something better and good. Always, always, always. And often it backfires, and often it doesn't work. But I think one of the key ones is more lights does not mean better lighting. You know, more lenses and more cameras and more kit does not mean better stuff.
It just takes longer.
Yeah, exactly. It's going to fuck you up in terms of speed. So that's, you know, simpler is better. You know, if you've got one light, you can really take your time getting exactly the right position. If you've got 4 lights, well, you've got a quarter of the amount of time per light getting into exactly the right position. So I think probably, for me, a good exactly that is stop putting lights on stuff. If
you know what I had, I just realized looking at this question as well, is the I told you so sometimes moments, which I rein back massively now, where I see the issue coming up, sometimes not in my department, and I sort of want to tell them, guys, this is gonna backfire. You sort of foresee it from your experience, which is maybe a bit more than other people's experiences in certain departments, and you're like, this is gonna be tough with a kid, for example, shooting with a kid, and you're like, from experience, like, this is way too quick of a schedule, and any way they can battle you, but be like, it's not gonna be on me, it's gonna be the issue, is gonna be the kid is gonna get tired after like 3 hours, and you will see it. And before I would vocalize it, it will sort of backfire because you're like, well, shut the fuck up, like, don't, like, it's gonna be fine, you're just saving your ass. Well, now I tend not to just say it. I'm like, well, if the hell breaks loose, hell breaks loose. From my experience, me suggesting stuff sometimes doesn't, you know, change other departments because it's not my department. Yeah. So there's that politics of it.
One of the things which I wrote down on my list of things to talk about with you about fuck-ups was, I call it my spidey sense, which is something which I've taken a long time to get in tune with. And I've written it down for a little while, but I've written it about 10 times before, prior to the past 6 months, which is trust your spidey sense, listen to your spidey sense, for fuck's sake, listen to your spidey sense. Which is, you know, when you've been doing this for a long enough time, like you say, you know, you develop a bit of a sixth sense about various things, and it's important to listen to that rather than necessarily always take other people's opinion. You know, you sort of play this sort of, it's almost like being sometimes being in a big production meetings, being like being in a law court. You know, you're like, you're there as, you know, a barrister saying, this is my opinion, this is what I think we should be doing, and someone else gives their opinion. And sometimes, you know what, bottom line is, sometimes you're just fucking right. For me, it's taken a long time to get used to that, because I'm like, well, you know, let's all just talk about it and work together. But actually, if you really, really know, deep down, if your spidey sense is going, that's a fucking nightmare, it's important to say that. But it's finding how to say that without being a dickhead.
That's a fucking art. That's exactly. Not what you shot this on, but the art of telling someone, we need a MoCo here. I know it's not a MoCo commercial, but you need a motion control unit, or you're gonna die like on middle of day 2 because it's just not fucking gluing together. Yeah, that's the art. That's
the art. Exactly. You're saying exactly what you need and being very firm about it, but not being a dickhead about it.
Yeah, and explaining it with previous examples, like, okay, this took this amount of time to shoot with this gear. We can try different ways, but let's have a plan B at least if there's not much time and money for motion control. That's so true. Yes, someone said in the comments, I had a DP, or Ray Sisters said, I had a DP who seemingly ordered 2 of everything. Our AD called the grip truck Noah's Ark. Twice as long to unload.
Great.
That's great.
My best friend's a sound recordist, and there is a DP who he used to work with, whose name I won't mention, but let's call him Dave. His name's not Dave, but my friend, sound recordist, used to call him Dave 9 Lights, because Dave would always put 9 lights onto every scene. So it was never 1 or 2 lights. It was always like
it was like a brute. Like that's it.
Let's get 9 lights on this interview.
But it's true. Like talking about dock work as well. We were discussing lights and simplification. Again, that would be my advice actually to young DPs, to not maybe so much push into polished commercial work, but try to shoot small docs about the subject you're interested in or a city you're interested in, and try not to make it too generally, oh, here's a gimbal running through the streets of Italy, because fucking anyone can make that look nice with a bit of filtration and backlight. But more, okay, let's try to shoot this kind of a bland looking fucking restaurant in an interesting way, in pretending it's a dock. I think you learn so much from, you know, from just turning the lights off in a room sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Suddenly, like, it looks half the way there, basically, for a doctor-looking piece. Okay, so do you have any other points of fuck-ups, or should we answer some of the questions?
I mean, I've got like, I tell you what, maybe one more thing for me, which is...
Should we do, one more each? Yeah.
Yeah, why not?
Okay, what's yours?
One of the big ones for me is, and I've titled it, being middle management, which is about sort of, as a DOP, you are, you know, you're a head of department, and you're somebody, and this is a weird thing to say, and let me just make sure I'm going to mumble through it, but it's about, you know, you do have to be some kind of leader. You have to be a team leader. And that's a thing that's taken me ages to sort of get used to. So it's about what I've written down is that, and there's some swear words in here, but I'm going to, you know, my mood affects my crew's mood. Don't lose your cool ever. Stay cool. The bad bits have been when you don't. You know, so I think for me, it's about, you know, making sure that you understand that how you behave is how your crew are going to behave. And if you're really stressed, they're going to get stressed. Or if you show you're stressed, they're going to get stressed. You know, and you know, you can't let that mask slip, really. You might be there going, oh my God, we're going to fucking run out of time here. This is terrible.
Typing into the notes.
Why didn't I ask for a second camera? But the second you start putting that out there is the second it starts all going wrong. And I'm not saying you have to be mega English and fucking stiff upper lip and internalize it all and hate yourself. But I think you have to be slightly in control of that filter, because just like an angry director raging around the place shouting and throwing scripts doesn't make anyone work any better. A DOP who rages around the place and is fucking angry and stops
It's a
crying.
weakness. It's another angle of a weakness. Yeah.
Totally. You're showing your tell. It's your tell that you're losing the poker game straight away. You know, and this, you know, also because you've got to look after your crew. Your crew will bleed and die for you if you're willing to bleed and die for them. Your crew will give you a smile if you smile at them. You know, if you're nice to cast, your crew will be nice to cast. If you work fucking hard, if you're the first person there on set, they'll be the first people there on set. So, you know, you actually, one of the sort of notes which I've made again and again and again, which not because of any particular bad moment particularly, but it's just about how you've really, you're head of department, you're head of a camera crew and you're head of a lighting crew, you fucking act like it. Act like it.
Yeah, totally. And I think as kind of a cheap wisdom would be also lead by example. Like, so I notice if you are late on, say, a multiple day shoot, be it a doc or commercial, I had it where I was late on the first 2 days for whatever reason, there's no excuse. Your crew tends to be sort of a bit more lenient with themselves being late. They're like, okay, another 5 minutes late. Suddenly next day is 10 minutes late. But if you lead, especially I noticed in the beginning of the day or beginning of a shoot, if it's a multiple day shoot, you need to establish it there, and then you can usually relax a little bit. They know you better, they know their moods. But if you show that panicky, for example, the stressfulness day one, they're like, fuck, that's how he's going to be for like 16 days or whatever, 32 days. That's going to be tough, because everyone also wants to enjoy the process. People are there to enjoy the fucking process, whatever tough it is. They don't want that for 32 days. So if you kind of establish that's the fucking mood we're going to be working in, you sort of lose them pretty quickly, because the same way it goes for you. Imagine like a stressy director. You're like, oh my God, there's like 31 days left of this. You're like, and then, but it tends to be that if you establish at the beginning, I find then you can have a bit of freedom to kind of a bit, like, be a bit more relaxed. Because I noticed it was when I shoot abroad in commercials, I noticed that almost the other way around was slacking a bit more. For example, if you slack it off at a camera prep level, it tends to be that they sort of think, oh, okay, that's his attention to detail. We can sort of not put the monitor you were planning. We can miss some of the filters. One of the lenses is missing. And I notice if you don't call it out soon, they'll be like, oh, well, that's the attention to detail. That's the assisting they're going to deserve for the next week or something. Yeah, I had it. And the moment you like...
So you know, for me, so I totally agree. So, I totally agree. You've got to be the leader. You've got to be head of department. What you do is what your department looks like. How you work is how your department works. How you act to people is how your department ends up acting to people. And it's a weird thing because nobody ever, you know, I'm sure the same to you. You never go to DOP school where you're told that you have to be a leader. You just
be a manager. Be a manager.
Yeah. You end up, you know, a couple of times fucking it up and realizing that you're fucking up your department. So, and that's why it's written down on my list, also my list of fuck ups.
Because you work on a kind of longer form, which means longer. Well, sorry, more amount of days. Big fucking hell English. A big amount of days that even on sort of ethical questions of sexist comments slipping in or bullying slipping in, like if you cut it soon. Like cut it as soon as you see it, usually just stops. They're like, okay, this is not the set, we're allowed to do it. But I notice if you kind of let it go first couple of times, it's much harder to stop the weeds sort of growing, if I may. It's really hard to just kind of stop it then. Yeah, they're like, well, yesterday it was fine to say all this. Why suddenly today you like all this?
Yeah, I mean, I must say, I don't think I've ever hired anybody who would ever make a comment like that. Fucking hate that shit.
But it can be even from a different department.
But, well, true.
Other people who suddenly like from slightly different kind of world. I had it because on commercials sometimes you don't really know everyone because it can be pretty big crew and suddenly you're like, wow, okay, great. Okay, so that was the point, which led into one of the questions I showed it because I was talking about leadership. My last one would be kind of a relatively big is under reading the script. So because sometimes they're given a script for an interview, because interesting, we have different kind of stories where your directors usually go into long form. So you go with them, where I come fully from commercial doco world, where this is all new to me, the long form and drama and features. So I usually don't know these directors, or I haven't worked with them at least. Sometimes I'm given very little time. I'm given, for example, a day or a day and a half, and sometimes I don't have enough time to sort of feel the script. And I started making that a priority to at least read it 2 times, ideally 3 times before the interview. Because sometimes I had it where they referenced something and I sort of remembered, but not fully to discuss it fully. You're like, I'm feeling this discussion is going somewhere, but I don't remember, for example, the little details or forgetting characters' names. I feel director will be offended by that when you're like, you know, the mum of Amy. You're like, yeah, that's the name. You sort of, it kind of shows you haven't really read it enough times to remember, say, 5-6 names. And I had that. How do you approach reading a new script? Had you had slip-ups? So you're like, well, shooting a different scene.
Yeah, I mean, my first ever scripted job was a TV show called Hollyoaks here in the UK. So it's a soap, but we did the film version of it. So we did it was like late at night. So a bit of swearing, a bit of sex, and a bit of violence, and it was like 6 1-hours. We shot me Alexa. It's 2012, but one of my worst days of my life ever, still to this day, was when they gave me 600 pages of Hollyoaks scripts, overwritten, all too long, all 100 pages. They should have been 60, like that thick. And I was like, the fuck am I going to do with this? And I had to read it. And I had to know what was going on in like this sort of.
Did you have enough time, or was it just ridiculous time?
Well, no, I had enough time. Yes. I had prep and I had enough time, but it's sort of finding the mental agility to memorize a 600-page book. I totally agree. For me, so knowing the script is, I try and read it before I shoot about 3 or 4 times. I've only done 2 interviews, so it's probably not a good example. But before I shoot, I would have read it once when I first get it. I would have read it a second time, a bit closer to prep, and then you sort of do different stages of work on it. So you kind of, the first time I just try and be like, I'm just going to fucking read it and see what happens and try and get into it. Try and treat it like a book, which I like, you know, and go, oh, fucking yeah, what's happening next? Great, and just enjoy it.
That's amazing sign. If that happens, you're like, that's just amazing. Totally. I know everyone else reading it is like, this is amazing, I want this. But that's exactly such a good sign. Yeah.
That's a beautiful thing. You go, oh my God, it's amazing. But it's a bit tougher when you go, oh, this is shit. But anyway, it's a different story for another time.
Yeah.
But yeah, when it's good, you're like, it's fucking amazing. And then sort of a second reading, normally it's I guess it's for an interview. So you kind of start thinking about visual things. And then you sort of break it down, you go super granular. This is the thing actually, which maybe when you actually going to prep a series, something which I remember directors who haven't done much drama, when they talk to me when they start, they go, "Oh my God, how are you? This is just too much stuff to prep. I can't take this. This is like all this shit. We got to film this. What? How are you doing this?" You break it down, and you break it down, and you break it down again. So you break it down per episode, break it down per part, per scene, per line. Just keep on granularizing it until it's easy, until it's a close up on a person. So I kind of.
And then the commercial director goes like, perfection, 30 takes, 30 takes of this.
Exactly, yeah, another fucking 2,000 shots to go. I don't think I've ever had a problem particularly, but I know it is something which I often talk to my crew about, because funnily enough, my camera crew never read the fucking script, and it always angers me. I know it's not really their job, but
it's time in it. There's no way.
I always think, come on, guys, just read it once. I think I've managed to get through to my main regulars about when we do a script job. Just give it a read, because it'll make them understand what's going on a bit better. But the problem is you get the sides. I mean, even on the day, even with every shoot, you get the sides in the morning on the catering bus. You get your pages to read of that you're shooting that day, and then sometimes.
Do you want to explain you've kind of just done it? Like, what's the sides for those who might not?
So for anybody who doesn't work in drama, when in the mornings, you get on your catering bus at 7 o'clock in the morning, always there at 7, calls at 8 o'clock. You get there at 7 o'clock, you get given a call sheet for the day with a schedule on it. So you get given a little bit of paper by the third AD, and they give you something called the sides as well. Normally it's like about that big, it's like half an A4 sheet size, and that is the pages of dialogue and scripts that you've got to shoot in that day. And often a lot of crew, and that's all you're shooting in that day. Sometimes you might shoot a little bit extra, sometimes you might not complete.
And usually that's when majority actually reads the script.
Exactly, yeah, that's when most crew read the script. But of course it's all out of order, because you've got something from Ep1 to Ep4, because you're in this one location or whatever it is, So kind of, the sides are like a vital, amazing thing. And it has been, on occasion, I have been known to go past the call sheet, look at the sides and go, "Oh, what's that scene? I forgot about that." But it's a hard thing to be totally over every single fucking page of every single scene in every single episode as a DOP. Yeah, I mean, obviously you need to know what's going on, but equally, and you need to have broken it down. But to know every utterance before you get to the shoot, it's almost not necessarily your job, but maybe it is. Maybe I'm really.
I totally agree. Yeah, but it's also. Have you ever had it where the script is this interesting, but there's also references because it's based on real events, for example, that it sort of distracts you because you're like, let me just Google it, or let me just research a bit on there.
Have you had that?
Yeah, I had it where it's like, I had it. I was given pretty substantial amount of pages. I was up for second unit for Chernobyl. And it was really like a low amount of days to prep for the interview. But I was so kind of in the story that I think it sort of derailed me, because I had, I think, exactly 2.5 days to read all of the episodes and prep for an interview, which I wasn't even sure which episode will they kind of question me on, or what scenes. So I meant to read everything, but I finished it something like 2 hours before the thing, because I just kept Googling stuff left and right from all these characters. Like, this is true? That can't be true. What? So you spend like an hour in a fucking YouTube wormhole. And you're like, what am I doing? Why am I not reading the script? So it's sort of, you have that where you do get these occasional, project scripts when you like, what? Like, but then, prep is fucking vital. You're not there to fucking check if this is true or not. I had it on a doc because doc is slightly different, because it's sort of characters usually grow. You start with little amount of characters, and as you shoot for, say, a year, sometimes on and off, you add more characters because someone found out you're shooting, and they call the production, they find the numbers, like, I have part of the story you also want to shoot. And sometimes you end up flying to the job if it's abroad. You're like, wait, which character are we shooting? What part of the story this is? And you have to sort of admit to the director, you're like, I'm confused, like, why are we flying there? And they're like, wait, this is a side story. We didn't tell you about this. It's like a side character we're doing. And so sometimes on a doc, you're like, oh, great. First time I sort of find out about the locations or how they look. So you have this kind of ultimate dock package of LED fucking panels to light it, and that's all you're given, and you're given like 15 minutes to set it up, and you're like, okay, let's try doing it. Sometimes you don't even know what's the story. But yeah, it happens. Should we answer a couple? I think that's us in terms of points, right? There's plenty more, but we have to keep some for the legal reasons.
let's do a couple more questions. Why not? Fuck it. Actually, I'm gonna get a beer. Hold on one second.
Yeah, do it. I'll select one. I like how
I got a beer.
Keep drinking. Don't do it, kids. That's the washing off the failures. Has there been times that you had to rush, cut corners, something to be on schedule that has haunted you for after the shoot?
Yes. Good question. Mark James video.
I think it's a good question. Can you talk about, say, end of the fucking world? Has there been something you look at now and you're like, fuck, I wish I did it the other way?
Yeah, buckets, loads. I wish there's loads of times I wish I didn't complete and shot something better, or got a couple of less shots, or forced my took my time and then the director had less takes or whatever it is. Yeah, I mean, all the time. Yeah, it's full of that. I mean, I think for me, in terms of what I'm trying to learn now, is how to balance that out. I've always been like, you got to complete, you got to finish today, you got to finish on time every day. That's not necessarily true. You know, your job is to produce good work, number one. Secondly, to complete. It's art of sort of, which I'm way learning, and I'm sure we'll learn forever, of making it look good, but also completing, and that push and pull. So yes, so many times I've cut corners myself or self-censored my time and my work, and had something which just comes out and looks a bit shit.
How do you?
And in the fucking world, there's loads of stuff in there. I'm like, oh my god, I wish I hadn't rushed that. Why did I rush that? Oh fucking hell, that could have been like an iconic moment if it wasn't fucking rushed and shit. But no one ever looked. No one knows that apart from me.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna ask. Because do you objectively understand that it looks great? It's like a great series. It looks great. It's watchable. It acting is great. Edit, like everything is good, or do you struggle to be objective that this is a good job? I've done a good job. It's acceptable. There's a couple of bits in it which are okay. In my honest opinion, I sit there after 3 beers and two margaritas on the roof. I go, there's a couple of bits which are all right, but most of it I'm like. Would you ever have said that in that form if it was shot by someone else? Would you be like, this is a great show?
I don't know. Can't answer that question. First series is great. First series is fucking wicked. You know, first series is like shot after shot of wickedness and wickedness. And then,
you do understand that it can't, like, it's objectively both series are good.
Yeah, but it's impossible. It's very nice of you to say that. I probably won't find a DOP who. I hope you won't find a DOP who looks at their own work and goes, oh yeah. Oh,
yeah, of course.
Right there, of course.
Yeah.
I am.
Yeah, of course. I'm being devil's advocate.
No, I know you are. I know. Is it any of your work which you like?
It's exactly same. Because I think the issue is, you know what it could have been. And it's always could have been better. Because you're like, oh, okay, I should have fucking not turned that light on. Oh, fuck, I should have pushed for the fire alarms being off so I can haze it up a bit. Or I should have not fucking hazed because it looks like any other Instagram fucking still. And like, there's always this battle that I know what it could have been. And like you say, sometimes you watch your work and you're like, this is actually, like, this moment is good. And you can't really judge even anymore. Did you control it, or is it just lucky good? But then I noticed, tell me if I'm wrong, because like you said, you shot for some years, that there is like a cutoff when you almost forgot you shot something, or you forgot like the script of it by now. You go back and watch it certain amount of years later, and you're like, that's actually quite decent. Like, wow, that's quite decent.
Yeah, very massively. Yeah, that's a good point. and you go, oh, she's right, you know.
Oh.
My rubbish.
I like
it. Yeah. And you go, that's kind of not as shit as you you know. I still don't sit there masturbating, but
no. But you're like, it's actually okay. It's fine.
But yeah, I go, yeah, that's right, actually. But then I always think, but normally I find that's actually the only time I think that is when I feel like I've moved on from that part of my career. So I definitely look back and go, you were younger then, you wouldn't do anything like that now, but it's not as bad as you thought.
Yeah.
You know, perhaps you go a bit easier on your younger self.
Yeah.
Rose tinted goggles.
That's so true. I also had it the other way, interestingly, where there was some, I remember like a short doc I showed to like a producer I trust, and she was like, nah, it looks kind of digitally. And I'm like, I thought it looked kind of all right. And then I watched it something like a month ago, and I was like, oh, fuck me, I know what she means. It looks kind of a bit naff. But then when I was shooting it, I was like, this is quite decent. Like, this is interesting, kind of. And then I even understood what she meant. She couldn't maybe explain it precisely, but like, I see what she means about digitally.
Yeah.
But sometimes, yeah, that sort of comment haunts you from someone you sort of trust.
Oh, it fucking does.
And you're like,
yeah,
shit, does it look digitally?
That shit sticks. Criticism fucking sticks. Oh my God, you can really get obsessed with it. I mean, my one about looking after leads is from a producer many, many years ago. It's like, you don't look after your female leads properly, do you? She said to me. I was like, what? And
now you have this like psychotherapeutical file.
Totally, it's awful. But you know, that's this human psyche, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's real weirdos.
Do you believe in this idea that if the criticism resonates, it probably means you know it's true somewhere deep? Or do you feel it usually harms? There's no positivity in it?
I think, well, I can tell you, I know because I had a producer who shall remain nameless, who was on a commercial for a large supermarket in the UK, there was an A camera, I was A camera, there's B camera doing some product shots in a garden next door, big advert, and he was a bit more experienced than me, and the producer was furious at me because the flares on my camera didn't look as nice as flares on his camera, and it went on, and it all down. Like, eventually I made playback op, play them next to each other to check that the flares looked exactly the same, and the flares looked exactly the same, but wow. And I was like, and it still annoys me to this day, where I was like, I was just as good as that other DOP, why were you giving me shit for this? And it still bugs me, even though I was totally correct and the flares were exactly the same, and it was just like, I don't know why she picked on me.
I like this very arbitrary measurement of flares.
She's like, his flares look really nice and warm and yours don't. I was like, I'm in the middle of a fucking commercial here. Come on. Like, we can't. We're the same lenses, the same camera, the same white balance, and know what we're doing. I'm all over this. Anyway, whatever. I don't want to be. I'm not going to
No. But yeah,
it was like he's a more experienced DB than me. He's very good, but something like
these comments. Yeah, they do sort of stick because, especially coming from powerful sort of positions. You're like, maybe they're right. You know, they shot
people whose opinion you respect.
So you're sort of like, maybe they yeah. It's interesting. Yeah. Let me check a couple more questions here, and I think we're gonna.
I do have to. Yeah, I'm gonna get going. In a few
yes.
minutes. I've got a Grand Theft Auto 5 date.
Let's choose one last question. Okay, I like this. Just on a positive sort of note. Something you learned recently, or changed about the way you work.
Mm-hmm. Do you want to go first, or?
Yeah, I can go first. I just had like a memory. So
a flashback.
I think what I changed massively is being switched on sets, which might be slightly, I can't say boring, but they're slightly more kind of repetitive because of the nature of the project. Where before, there's helicopters flying. Before, I would maybe zone out a bit and not really like concentrate on one of the shots in the sequence, for example. Like, yeah, I'll be fine. Like, it's lit fine. I don't need to sort of like I'm giving myself a break in one of the shots, for example, if it's a long day. And I learned that's the point sometimes where an experienced producer or director can be looking at you and judging your day by. They can be like, well, he's kind of a bit zoned out. Does he even care about the project? And it might be for multiple reasons. I am like that, but I'm kind of trying not to be. If I'm on job, I try to be 100% in the job. For example, not prepping the next job. Sometimes we have to in commercials, is sort of in the corner quietly typing the lighting list for the next job because you're both prepping. And the director sees you do it. They usually be like, well, he doesn't give a fuck about this job then if he's prepping next one. And you are giving a fuck. You just have zero time in your day to actually do this lighting list for a job in, say, a day. You need it in the next hour. And that's just managing your time better, basically. That's what I learned.
And I mean, yeah, I totally agree. I mean, that's something which I often catch myself going, fuck, I'm on my fucking phone. Christ, they just looked at me being on my phone. This is really bad. I've done it too much now. Get the phone away. Make some jokes on set quick. Have a laugh at the director's jokes quick.
Distract.
Yeah, quick. But yeah, I mean, yes, because like, you know, round back to the main clients, you know, the director's also your client as well, and you're getting paid a lot of money to you know, obviously have fun lighting playtime with them, but you know, to do the job. So yeah, it is important to be present. But yeah, I mean, for minor things, I actually weirdly I find, and this is a weird admittance, that I kind of, and I've spoken to directors about this, have the same thing, going on Instagram or doing a little thing almost becomes meditative. Like there's a sort of weird thing which sometimes I find if I'm looking at set too much, it's tell you what, it's a bit like when you go to the grade and you're sitting in a grade and you take a break for every hour, you take a little break for 2 or 3 minutes, go outside, reset your eyes and come back into it again. I actually think, for me, I think I probably work better, and this is pretty sure it's too loud, actually when I sort of do a little bit, I'll check the Guardian, any news, read something about Donald Trump for 30 seconds, what a cunt, and then go back to the set, and actually when I go, oh, actually, hold on, yes, I've refreshed, I know something, I've just stopped being weirdly focused and actually click back into the room in a way which is more effective. So I like to say mind breaks.
So basically, you use your phone while nobody's watching.
I use my phone when everyone's watching. It's terrible. But then I take the piss out of all my crew who are on their phone. I'm like, why are you on your fucking phone? You should be paying attention to this. Read the script, you know. But obviously always jokingly because I know I'm just getting my phone out.
Great.
Terrible infliction. Telephones, they're awful. So what was the question there?
The question was, what are the ways, have you changed or learned something recently in the way you work? Change, I guess is
change. Yeah, it's tricky. I'm just looking at my lists here. Really, I mean, I sort of I've got loads of little tiny things, like loads of little, you know, notes about working on low loaders and having big cards, and you know, the 65mm ARRI DNA lens, the Alexa 65. It's rubbish at T1.6. And T2.2 is great. T2.2 is brilliant. Like loads of little tiny notes like that. Do
one macro. Do one, say, in your relationship with directors. Do you have something in the last year you've changed?
I do, yeah. I've wrote in big letters at the top of my fuck-ups list. Fucking do work for yourself as much as others. So, you know, which is something which I'm learning, which I'm trying to learn, which is... falls back onto a previous question about not, you know, rushing through stuff and things like that. You know, it's important you are your own worst critic. And this is especially true for drama, less so commercials, less so jobbing commercial stuff. But actually to you know, if you're not happy with it at the end of it, if I'm not happy with it at the end of it, I'm the most important person to be happy at the end of all this. Hopefully by doing that I also please the director at the same time. So obviously the director's the most important and the client's the most important, but actually it's really, really important that I'm happy with what I've done. And I would, by proxy, the director's happy and the client's happy. But so often I've been in a place where the director's happy and the client's happy and I'm not happy. So to try and get into a place where I'm working for myself and making myself happy, I think is really important. And so much I've been trying to do, not at the expense of upsetting a director, not at the expense of upsetting clients, but just something which
that would lead to both of them probably being happier as well. Yeah.
Yes, totally. So that's probably the thing in the past year. I think I've written that. That's pretty a big note for me.
Awesome.
But then leads into a bigger chat about fucking careers and how you act and how you say shit things in a nice way.
It's a special online masterclass.
Yeah.
Ben,
yeah.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
For
Cheers, Edgar.
joining us today. Great. Yeah. Great.
Cheers.
Great. Thanks for everyone coming and listening to us talk about the fuck ups and hopefully learning from each other and from you guys asking questions. Awesome, mate. See you around. See you on the other
See you later.
other side.
See you out there.